It's a pleasure to be hosting this great event. It's always a pleasure to be in the company of experienced and august people from the industry. My good colleagues, Mr. Osama Rahma, who is the former CEO of Fardan Exchange and current strategic advisor to the board, and also works very closely with the Central Bank of the UAE. We are also joined by Mr. Khalid Zain, who is again an experienced banking professional with decades of experience, and he comes from experience from HSBC, the Saudi version of HSBC, which is Saudi Arabia, the Saudi Arabian. Sorry, Khalid, SABB, right?
That's Saudi British Bank, yeah.
Saudi British Bank, that's correct. Which is so collaboration between Saudi Arabia and HSBC. And of course, he heads the international remittance business at Bank Albilad, which is formerly Anjaz, which is a very, very respected, the leading remittance player in the Saudi Arabian market. And of course, we are joined by Mr. Faisal Rashid, who heads the financial institutions and international remittance business at Bank Alfalah from Pakistan. Faisal comes from vast banking experience as well, having headed international remittances at Mizan Bank and Faisal Bank in the past. Just to clarify, I'm not sure if Faisal owns Faisal Bank, but he's worked for Faisal Bank as well in the past. So, and of course, we know Mr. Osama Rahma, again, going back, I forgot to mention Fardan Exchange is part of the Fardan brand, which is one of the biggest brands to come out of the UAE and the Middle East. So we are in a very good crowd, highly experienced professionals here, and it's really exciting. Now, with the pandemic, obviously, amidst the pandemic, different markets are reacting in different ways. Middle East is a very big remittance market, as we all know, and it's a very important market for our industry, very healthy market. And I think what we'll do is we'll get straight down to business, and we'll start by asking a few questions. We have some very good questions lined up here, very relevant to the audience. And we'll start by the first question. And at the outset, a caveat: I do not intend to be rude. What I would suggest is, please bear with me. I will ask a question, and I'll just mention the time limit that we have. This is to facilitate, discussions, and also to keep some time aside for the Q&A session at the end, where our audience will have an opportunity to ask questions. So, first question for Mr. Osama: how has the pandemic impacted the money transfer space in the UAE? We'll give you 2 minutes, and then we'll ask the same question to the other panel members as well.
Yeah, Bismillah ar-Rahman. I mean, no doubt that the pandemic had its own impact on all sectors of businesses, including the financial sector, and Middle East is not an exception from what's been happening in the globe and around the world. And we've been facing something unprecedented before, which is the total lockdown and the control of the mobility of people, and businesses were also being impacted from different surroundings. In UAE, we managed through the foreign exchange and remittance group, when we were foreseeing how this would impact the majority of those remitters. As we all know, that UAE is very unique, along with other Gulf countries here and in the GCC, that the workforce are contributed majority from expats. It is around 90% of the workforce in UAE are expats, and those all are under what we call it the wage protection system, which be initiated as a unique initiative from UAE government back in 2009 to protect the salaries of the workers. Along with that one, we have almost 85% of the population down here are expats living in UAE from different nationalities, around 200 nationalities living in UAE, in harmony and peacefully, contributing to the growth of the economy down here. When we have addressed those issues, the first thing was to have a dialogue with different government sectors in order to keep it under what we call it, the exempted activities. So there were a few exempted activities like healthcare, like food stuff, other things which is considered as as one of things to be continuing operating and doing business and not to be shut down. And the money transfer and the exchange houses here in UAE being exempted, matter of fact, of course, taking into consideration certain protocols, social distancing and protecting the employees as well, with all the hygienic, protocols which are supposed to take place. And that have allowed, those measures have allowed to continue doing business and to make the workers still, because we know in the receiving countries, those families were also in more, severe need for such transfers. And we thanks to the authorities and government bodies who were so understanding that they have contributed to such, allowance for us and permission to continue doing business.
Great, thank you, Osama. A question this leads us nicely to the next question for Khalid. When we use the term workforce, we have workforce for the bank, for the exchange house. We have the migrant workforce. So that's, so we have the employees and we have the senders, the people who are sending money. What has been the impact on the workforce itself? The workforce on the employees at Bank Albilad and other banks in Saudi Arabia, and how have the senders been affected? Your comments, please. Sorry, Khalid, I think you're on mute. Khalid?
Yeah. Actually, this is a very, very good question. And thanks to Mr. Osama, he summarized lots of things, which is applied in UAE and Saudi Arabia being neighbors. And we almost have the same, culture. We're taking same precaution everywhere. So in terms of what measures have been taken, or what is the impact on employees and workforce, the governments of Saudi Arabia, they have put in place so many programs, so there will be no major impact actually on companies, and to reduce the number of laid off employees and the workforce, even for private sector. So they have actually a private sector financing support program initiative, which worth more than 50 billion of Saudi Arabia. So the government itself invested a lot on helping the private sector to keep their employees and not to have a big impact on employees, and not to have a big layoff on a number of employees. And on top of that, we have lots of measurement also posed by the regulatory, actually, for social distance impact on the staff themselves, because that will have also something on their families as well. So we have applied lots of social distance measurements, hygiene, as what Mr. Osama have mentioned before. We put lots of things in place. We increased number of security guards. Number of customer within the branches. We keep distance from everyone. So to keep actually taking care of our customer, at the end. So I think there is an impact, but it's not that much, because the measurement was there from the government and from the private sector as well. I think after what's happened during the pandemic, things are now back to normal. We have seen even the employment rate have been went good during the pandemic. We haven't seen a big layoff. Recruitment is in place. Number of employees are increasing in the market. So I think we are in a good shape in Saudi Arabia when it comes to workforce and the layoff.
Okay, great. Speaking of impact, I'd like to bring in Faisal here. Now, Faisal is on the receiving end of the equation, right, from Pakistan. So with the pandemic in general, the expectation in North America and Europe has been that we have seen a decline in the traditional remittance model, and by that I mean the agent-based model. The remittances have declined, but those remittances simultaneously have increased on the digital side from mobile apps, and we see a similar trend, and we'll get more into it, and I'll probe further, Mr. Osama and Mr. Khalid further. But on the receiving side, have you seen a dip in remittances, or a rise in remittances, or has the status quo been maintained?
So obviously, like you mentioned, the initial fear was that there will be a dip in remittances because of the slowdown that we were seeing around the world. And for Pakistan, it was a more peculiar situation because for us, remittance serve as a massive FX inflow, and any shortfall in that would have had repercussions beyond that would have impacted us significantly. Surprisingly, what we noticed is that despite the pandemic being there, remittances have actually grown into Pakistan. And just from the GCC side, which is our bulk of where the remittances come from, we witnessed an increase about 25% in the remittances from year-to-year comparison between Jan and October.
Wow.
Driven primarily by Saudi Arabia, that saw 36% increase. UAE saw 17% increase, and I think that was because of the strength of our partners sitting outside who were able to graduate these guys from the normal brick and mortar to the digital space. Unfortunately, on the receive side, we face a different challenge. We were unable to convert this into a digital payout at our end. And that is more
Right.
to do with the infrastructure or the lack of digital ecosystem within the country that prevents this from happening. But
Right.
what we do see is that discussion of the world is becoming more discussed, and people now try to understand how this works is coming true. I think primarily driven by the fact that the sender is familiar with this process. He understands the process, he understands the convenience, and now he's speaking to the beneficiary here of the convenience of this new mode. So
Right.
from our perspective, whereas we have not seen the shift as yet, but we do see a change, and we do see an initiation of discussions towards that goal. And as and when the economy digitizes more and more, we do feel that we can expect a quick ramp up with regards to that opportunity.
Okay, great. Thanks, Faisal. So it's interesting. So you said there's a, sorry, just to make sure that I got the numbers right. Did you say 25% increase over the same period?
Yeah, 25% increase in from the GCC region, Jan to October between 19 and 20.
That is really impressive. That is really impressive. So Osama, sir, for you,
Yes.
this question then, would you say that this has largely to do with UAE, and so actually this question is for both Khalid and Osama, but I'll start with Osama. Would you say that this has largely to do with the infrastructure already being put in place by the central banks in the UAE and Saudi Arabia, so that you were able to support this rapid shift, this sudden shift from traditional agent-based model to digital models? Would you say that's a fair comment? Yeah.
Definitely, absolutely. I believe ability to continue working within such environment, which is most of the people within the back office, for example, we are doing things remotely, and we do understand we have a lot of activities like the compliance, operation, treasury, internal audit, IT. We have managed to start before the lockdown, matter of fact. And the infrastructure within the country when it comes to the communication, internet, power, and the internal with the resiliency within the company itself, that was kind of a challenge, but yet it also opened a new line for us to understand more about efficiency and working remotely, yet having full control. As you and all the audience are here aware, we are dealing with sensitive activities, which is the remittances and this treasury and the covering and the settlement and all those stuff. And that is an ecosystem. You can test it, matter of fact, when you have something like this, which went very smooth. Now, just to comment on Faisal, Mr. Faisal brought about about, all others corridors within UAE were showing a decline to certain levels, different corridors, for example, India or Egypt or Philippines, and it was varying those declines as per the central bank second quarter report. The only exception, and I second his view, the only exception was Pakistani corridor. And that is, I have a view about it. The Pakistani corridor with the Pakistan initiative to remittance, which is managed by the different government bodies within Pakistan, including the State Bank of Pakistan, to provide what we call it the formal channels through the banking sector to be the main mean and vehicle for the remitters instead of the gray markets. And I believe the pandemic have allowed a lot of those people who were going to the unofficial channels to start experiencing the official channels, because those people were not able to do due to the logistics and the lockdown and the flight cutoff and others. So that made, I believe, in my understanding or my analysis, I cannot validate those facts, but I believe part of what we have seen as a growth, which is confirmed by Mr. Faisal, is that we have seen in UAE a growth in the second quarter of 11.15%, for example, in the Pakistani corridor, where we have seen a decline in Egypt by 8.8%, and in India 17.22%. While Philippines, to the receiving countries lockdown, the remitters here were able to do remittances, but the receiving side were locked down. So they had the maximum of around almost 24% decline. The only exception was the Pakistani corridor, and I believe that this is part of the positive, we can say, the positive side of engaging and including these unofficial channels to onboard them through the official channel, which were the only available channels for people who wanted to remit back money home.
That's a very interesting point. Thank you for that. In terms of productivity, and this is actually this question, I suppose it spans multiple verticals, not necessarily limited to just our great industry. But I'll ask Khalid, in terms of employee productivity, having to work from home, is it fair to say that working from home does not necessarily stifle productivity in our industry?
Actually, it's a new experience for everyone, but people need to adapt for it. So adoption is a key element for successful. So we have faced some maybe difficulties at the beginning of working from home, but we did lots of awareness, lots of education to everyone to reach a level where working from home is the same as working from office. So we gave all employees the necessary, devices, access, so they can do their job while staying at home, same as staying at office. So we haven't experienced actually difficulties, and everything is working fine for us. Taking in consideration, working from home is an additional measurement for the safety of the staff. So we are keep doing it, despite that number of cases in the market is going down, thanks to the government, and the measurement have been taken by the government. So number of cases are going down, but we still, the bank itself, the board members have said that stay at home, don't bring as much of employee to office, work with a limited percentage of staff. So we keep doing that to keep the family safe, everyone safe, and I think the business is working fine. And with regards to remittance, as per the World Bank, expectation, there should be a reduction in remittance globally between 20 to 25%. But for us in Saudi Arabia, actually, the remittance as of today compared to last year, we have seen a growth in remittance by 8%. So there was actually a reduction during the pandemic, but after the market opening up, we have seen a spike and increase in percentage, and we have seen lots of people are moving to to digital rather than doing it in the traditional way.
Yeah, sorry guys, I was on mute. Thank you, Khalid, for that insight, for sharing that insightful opinion. In terms of, okay, so I just want to dig deeper into this, the shift to digital. And I suppose this question is for everybody, of course, and we'll give everybody an opportunity to share their thoughts on this. We'll start with Faisal. Are we really now witnessing a shift in business models as businesses move from traditional agent-based models to online and mobile? Something that happened in Kenya, for example, the M-Pesa model, which is a big success story. We keep talking about that. Are we witnessing that in Pakistan today? Are we? What are your thoughts on that, Faisal?
So you see, for Pakistan, it's a young population. It's a population that understands social media. It's a population that understands various messaging tools. And we do feel that the market is evolving. But see, you need to understand, there are a lot of things that need to be in place for you to effectively graduate to digital. You simply getting money into the wallets and not being able to spend it virtually is the biggest challenge that we have. So right now, bulk of the wallet models are that the money falls into the wallets, and then you have to somehow from some channel pull the cash out and then use it. So what we are trying to do here, and what banks like led by Alfalah are trying to do, and I think we're leading this space, alhamdulillah, is we are trying to create a lifestyle app. So using our Alpha module, you can buy tickets, you can pay utility bills, you can transfer money, you can, pretty much do shopping, take out a personal loan, and all of those things you can theoretically do on your app, sitting at home, wherever you are. But this is something that will only catch on as the mobile density is still there, but as a smartphone density increases. Right now, 1/3 of Pakistan is the one that uses a smartphone, but the remainders are essentially using basic phones, and they're not really up to speed on that app part. And we feel that as that space increases, and with the young population that you have, we do feel that graduation will happen very quickly, and it's really being helped by our partners in the GCC. So people sitting in the labor camp, they were using the standard brick and mortars a year ago. Now most of them have moved to digital. Now that experience and that discussion is moving back home. That I do this on my phone, I do all that on my phone, and that is now catching on. And what I have noticed during this COVID period is that a lot of the people who were in the lower income strata of the economy, they are now moving to a slightly more sophisticated, very basic smartphones are now more available in Pakistan. Right. And people who you would not, I feel cannot read or write properly, you can start getting WhatsApp from those guys. So no, that graduation in Pakistan is happening. And what it needs now are more players like Bank Alfalah that allows you to create that ecosystem whereby the payment module, whereby you're able to tap and pay, and where you can buy, get a tuk-tuk in to the same app. You can do all the basic things to that same mobile wallet. Once that happens, I feel Pakistan, with the young population and the tech savvy that we are, and I strongly believe Pakistan is a very tech savvy for this region. So it will catch on very quickly. But that graduation has started. So COVID has actually expedited the process of digitalization. And now, 2 years ago, there were banks discussing the viability of having a digital wallet or digital bank. But now almost all banks are working on it. We started journey about 2 years ago, and now we are benefiting from it because we have reached that stage, and we're seeing that traction happening. And luckily, this discussion is happening, and hopefully, in a couple of years, you will see a massive shift from cash to digital payments, inshallah.
Yeah, so just on that point, I just wanted to share. I mean, it's interesting what you said, and just tying in with what you said, what we're witnessing here from the UK. I mean, I mean, this is not the intention is not for this to be a sales spiel for RemitONE, but it's just I'm just saying as a remittance software solutions provider, we are witnessing something similar. The number of inquiries from fintech startups has skyrocketed. The number of companies, money transfer companies from the Middle East, from Africa, who want to set up business in Europe has skyrocketed. We are helping these companies because we help them with the licensing and getting them money service business license in the UK and Europe. But we also give them the technology platform, which is our main bread and butter, which is what we do. But the demand has skyrocketed. So what's really interesting is, despite the pandemic, since March, the fintech startup space has risen, has shot through the roof. The number of applications, we can see that the interest in the e-money space, electronic money. You talked about wallets. There is so much demand here now for electronic wallets. The stickiness of the customer, you must have, obviously we're familiar with the expression, and how to give this customer, once you acquire this customer through a wallet, give them a range of services. So what's happening is not just remittances now. You want to give from that same pool, that same wallet. You want to allow the customer to do a lot more than just simply remittances. And I think that's the interesting shift that's happening. But on the Osama, sir, for you, this question, you see, in the UK, we are when it comes to online, I believe the latest stats were 51% of the UK population shops online. Now, I know the situation is somewhat different in other markets, but for there to be a digital landscape, you need new entrants in the market, like payment gateways, payment processors, and so on and so forth. How has that been in the UAE? Clearly, there's a big market now for these new entrants. And is that being driven by local providers, or are international payment gateways making inroads into the UAE and Saudi Arabia consequently?
Well, this is the answer is, it might not be short for this one, but just to touch base on what Faisal was speaking about and about your observation within UK. I believe what, from consumers' experience point of view, on the payment and the remittance side, I believe before COVID-19 and after COVID-19, there was a big change. The acceleration of engagements of the people toward the online became part of realities and facts. Now, how the companies are ready and able to adapt to those changes and demand from the consumers, this is varying based on the resiliency of each company, but at the same time, on the infrastructure which we have spoken about of the city or of the country. When we come to UAE, for example, UAE, the government on federal level and Dubai, for example, as a city, are having a very clear strategic initiative toward the digital transformation. This didn't start within the COVID, it has started a few years ago. Building the whole infrastructure, whether it is related to the policies, whether it is related to regulations, or then to the infrastructure. And what we on the top of it is about the cyber security, which is very important to create a confidence for people to engage with such initiatives. Now, when we take UAE as an example, beginning of the year or last year, end of last year, if I remember, there was an introductory of what we call the UAE Pass. UAE Pass is nothing but the digital identity of every single resident down here in UAE, which once he has the UAE Pass, it is like his key to access any financial or any contract or whatever taking place remotely. And once he has registered there, that will be allowing him, to have full digital identity, so he doesn't need any kind of. So onboarding customers from KYC point of view, which is important. This is one step is being agreed between federal governments and the local governments in UAE. And I believe this is very important key for us being a financial institutions. The second is we have one of the highest, penetration of what we call it the smartphones. It is almost touching 80%. So, and that allows a lot of people to engage, and that is applied to all sectors and segments. Now, when it comes to the transfers and money remittances, exchange houses in UAE mainly serving all sectors, but mainly what we call them the unbanked people. Now, unbanked people, one of the major issue about it is, yes, they do receive now their salaries on a stored value cards, but how you would engage them to have a platform which can really be linked to those applications or mobile applications, which allow him to have a seamless journey during his transfer. There was a huge surge into the way the growth took place about the shift in the online. People rather preferred, of course, definitely to go to the apps. Those companies which were having apps, they have noticed and observed, a real, growth with multiples, time. People do prefer. Still, I believe we need a lot of things to be happening when it is come to regulatory framework about what we call the eKYC. And that is yet to be clearly defined in order to approve those standardized, remotely onboarding customers remotely is something very important, I believe. And this is now the second, phase of the UAE pass is to have the full, onboarding to become remotely. As of now, you need to download the app and then you go one time to validate, your biometrics in any of hundreds of locations around UAE. But also they are working very soon, I think within weeks, they are testing that one, which is will have an advanced level of onboarding the customers fully remotely and do validate all other like the facial recognition and other security features along with his what we call it the Aamer's ID, which that is very critical, and I believe from especially from compliance point of view. But speaking about technology, about infrastructure, cybersecurity, all those means are available within the country, which really enhance the level of the customer's experience when it comes to do it, fully on a digital level.
That's great. It's interesting. A digital key. The concept. So you've talked about digital key, eKYC, and customer onboarding. Is the process similar in Saudi Arabia, Khalid? Would you say?
Actually, for us in Saudi Arabia, the beauty of Saudi Arabia actually and the regulation is whenever someone have reached an age of 15, he needs to issue his ID card, and he needs to have a fingerprints already stored in the system. Anyone coming to the market here from any countries all over the world, he needs to add his fingerprint in the system. So actually all the data are there in the mainframe. And now we are experiencing, or not now, actually, for quite a long time, actually, we have experienced, the beauty and the impact of doing this by the government. So it helped us to introduce the eKYC seamlessly for the banks, actually, and for the remittance houses. Not only that, also a private sector and government sector can also, leverage from these data. So for us in Injaz, actually, for the digital transformation, we have launched our Injaz app. We have launched our, Injaz wallet card. We introduced the eKYC. We introduced many ways of authentication fingerprint using his, credential with the government, which is called Abshir data. We introduce, within the government platform for additional authentication method. So for us, the adoption of the eKYC and transformation and migration of the customer to digital is going, very excellent for us. We have seen, a spike on migrating customer to digital. We have seen lots of customers are joining us because of the seamless onboarding process. We have so rich data there with the government, and the beauty that we can leverage from this data in migrating lots of customers from traditional way of doing business with us to a digital, way.
Okay, now that's quite interesting. Now, it just made me think about the various players that are involved here in the, in our remittance ecosystem. Going back to payment gateways, ID verification providers. When you go online, these are some of the things that we have to consider as businesses. And as Osama and yourself mentioned, the infrastructure is there. The infrastructure is there. Now we have to ride on that infrastructure and evolve. And that's great that we are doing that. In terms of, I know that there's a lot of support by the UAE central government, by Saudi Arabian government as well, to drive and push more fintech businesses into this space. I just wanted to understand, in terms of the payment processors, to facilitate these payments, digital payments, how has that landscape been? And, are you witnessing, do you foresee a big growth in that space as well? Or is it going to be dominated by a few players? So for example, if you have one bank, which is offering its own payment gateway, is that going to do you see that one payment gateway becoming the dominant force in the region? Or do you think there's a healthy room for competition for international players and local players to compete?
Actually, we have seen, as you said, part of our test environment and the regulation actually body. We have within SAMA, we have something called the sandbox.
SAMA is the regulator, right? The Saudi regulator. Just for the audience.
Yes, Saudi Monetary Agency. Yeah. So SAMA, they have established what they call the sandbox. Okay, where lots of fintech companies coming from the whole globe that they are testing their actually their solution within SAMA itself. Okay, and we have seen actually lots of big player in the market, and for us we do have lots of PSPs are on the ground working in the market. We have seen banks, lots of banks actually, they already have issuing and acquiring licenses, like Bank Albilad. So it is part of the 2030 vision that to have a cashless society. So there is a lots of strategies in place, okay, to open the market, open it up actually for many players to come, to have, to keep the competition in the market in order to have a better services. As you have mentioned in UK with what you have seen in the UK, actually about the regulation in the UK and the open banking and the BDS actually too, where you are no longer owning the data as a bank, the data is owned by the customer himself. So we have seen actually that in the market. People are talking about open banking. So I think we are moving into the right direction. Lots of players are coming on the way, and it's not only about one bank or one PSP. Lots of players in the market, and the market is in need for more players to come.
Thank you, Khalid. Any comments? Can I break here for any comments Faisal or Osama might have?
Yeah. May I comment on, I believe what Khalid has brought is something which is the direction, matter of fact, even for the UAE government, whether it is the central bank, as we know here, we do have as well other two different regulators like the Abu Dhabi Global Market, the ADGM, and well, they have also their own regulatory frameworks for the startups, and they have their own initiatives as well for the startups and the support and the facilitation to encourage and all the fintech companies, and jointly they are joining hands with what we call it Central Bank of UAE. So there's a big event taking place jointly between Abu Dhabi Global Market and which is considered as the offshore regulator, like the Dubai International Financial Center. And they are joining hands with Central Bank to have a big fintech conference end of this month, November. That is also, they allow the sandboxes. There's already, if you visit the ADGM fintech side, you will find that there's a lot of we call it a Hub 71, which is a big joint, venture between, different top companies, and they have almost 50 billion dirham to support those startups in Abu Dhabi. And that is part of it is about payment. They are also creating the payment lab there for the innovation and for the testing. And there's a lot of regulations around it and to allow those fintechs to act like what Khalid brought about the sandbox, and then accordingly develop those rules, regulations governing such fintech business models. On the other side, we have in Dubai what we call it a part of the IFC is what we call it the fintech hive, and that is also another. You'll find a lot of companies, startups. It is unique that we just celebrated the one of the innovative initiatives of His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, the Internet City. Internet City completed 20 years at a time when people were speaking about internet as something which is not part of our daily lives. His Highness set up a whole, free zone city to allow all the top companies to come and act over there, having a belief that the technology and the innovation is one of the drivers of the future economies. So the knowledge-based economies and sustainability of such economies is all about how you leverage on the latest technology, and part of it is coming in the payment industries. Now we do have today, for example, the Dubai Economic Development Department. They own also what we call it the pay engage, which is a very latest initiatives to provide a full-fledged payment platforms. So I believe coming to your questions, this won't be monopolized by certain players. The whole setup, and just recently Central Bank also, just they had their own definitions about the cryptocurrencies and other regulations, including the ISCA, which had their own things. Also, there is the consultation taking place about the PSPs, and earlier there was about the digital payment. So the rules, regulations, the regulatory framework to allow as much companies and contributors to enhance the digital transformation toward what we call the cashless society is being set up. Smart Dubai, for example, which is the smart government initiative, which is going fully blockchain into so many things. They have a clarity on that. So they already done with their own policies related to the big data policies and other stuff. All the things is being set up here to allow more for the innovation and going toward. I participated myself in a few workshops related to the Economic Development Department of Dubai government about the creation of the strategy of the cashless, society. So there is clarity, there is a strategy, there is a vision, and there is a clear plans going, in a very clear milestones, with all the stakeholders between federal and local governments to create such, environment. And I believe this is unique in this part of the region, compared to other parts of the world as well. This is very interesting movements happening down here, and the shift in the way it's happening is very, fast. This is encouraging a lot of international companies to come and make a setup down here, because the market is huge. Once you are here, from logistic point of view, you are covering a big area, with multi-billion
Yeah.
populations. It is not about just being within the Gulf countries, but as we all know that the technology is cross-border technology where you can also avail from the surrounding markets as a whole.
Okay. Thank you, Osama. Faisal, I've got some questions coming through, and I'll just add my own, I suppose the word I'm looking for is masala on those questions and ask. So, Faisal, the Pakistani landscape is very unique. And as Brother Osama mentioned as well, it's quite impressive that whilst other economies are struggling, experiencing a dip, you've experienced a 25% growth. For those who just joined recently, the attendees, you've witnessed a 25% increase in remittances. Now, in Pakistan, you have a unique setup. You have collaborations between telcos and MFIs, microfinance institutions. You have Uphone, Ujazz, you have the likes of Easy Pesa partnering with, I think it was Tamir Bank. You have Mobilink partnering with Al Wasila Finance. This is a very unique setup. The only other place where you have such a setup and has been successful is the M-Pesa story in Kenya. How has this whole thing, this whole landscape, the uniqueness of this landscape been for Pakistan? And why hasn't?
So you see,
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Let's address this question
no,
first.
no, go ahead, go ahead. Yeah.
No, it's fine actually. Yeah.
You see, Pakistan, so basically, Pakistan's biggest challenge has been of financial inclusion. So, despite being a huge population, the economy remains cash-based, and financial inclusion has been very limited. And there was a huge space available for telcos and other payment gateways to make possible and MFIs to come in and start financing. And in that space, since the mobile density was immense, they were able to convert that into a successful mode of money transfer, whereby you could move money from one location to other. Unfortunately, the script that was missed out in a lot of people's opinion was, with Easy Pesa coming in and MobiCash and all these coming in, what they essentially did was that they made possible a movement of cash from one location to another. An ecosystem was never built that allowed for that cash to remain within that digital space, allowing it to be used up within that, the same
Yeah.
infrastructure. And this is the only challenge or the missing part or the puzzle that I feel is left in the Pakistan digital story. So
Okay.
if you look at it from our perspective, you have huge banks like Tamir, which is now Telenor Bank, is huge. You have Khushali Microfinance. You have regional banks that are coming in. Um, they are, and what they also allow is that they allow you to send money across. You can the Easy Pesa funds can move into so that collaboration is taking place already, but the digitalization of the entire space has not taken up right now. So what is now happening is that these banks that in this space, which is now essentially telco led, banks are also coming in. So now you have the bank Alfalah with their own little app. You have Habib Bank coming in. You have the UBLs coming in, and they are now offering various solutions and various things. And the advantage that we have is similar to what is available in Saudi Arabia. We have a biometric verification system available called the Nadra. So all Pakistani mobile numbers right now are validated through the finger scanning of the individual. So the same database is right. So what you have to do, you go to any location, any bank, you do your biometric, your entire database from the national database center comes across, and that allows that easy access to information that's there. And uh, the people are familiar with moving money or cash through mobile phones, but that graduation from a mobile phone to a app-based graduation, that is the only step that's missing. And the moment we complete that, I believe that we will come up that digital space very quickly. So see, we do have, so the most important thing in all of this to happen is the data, and data does reside at various pockets. And the moment you integrate that data and you're able to use it the way that it's used in other countries, Pakistan will inshallah be a good success story for digital transformation, because what's happening is that already a lot of the government incentives, there's a Benazir income support program, which is for the poor people. It's a handout by the government, is done through the mobile app, the mobile wallets. The pensioners payments are now going to the mobile payment, mobile wallets right now, or into accounts, right? So that the ability of getting money into that wallet just exists. It's about us putting together an ecosystem that allows you to spend within that same digital space. And the moment that's complete, with a young population that is relatively tech savvy, with smartphone penetration increasing, I feel that maybe 3-4 years later, Pakistan will be a good success story, and instead of M-Pesa, you'll be reporting a lot about Pakistan's digital transformation. Inshallah, that's the thing that we're looking at.
Inshallah. Thank you.
Actually, Aamer,
Yes, Khalid.
Aamer, if you may allow me, please.
Yes,
Actually,
yes, of course.
I would like to assure that whatever Faisal said is totally true. Actually, upon launching our full digital journey with Injaz app, where you can do the AKYC opening Injaz account, issue your virtual card, do beneficiary management, and send a transaction using your Mada card or even your wallet card. Actually, we have seen, actually, based on our analysis, we have seen the Pakistani community have a very great adoption to Injaz technology. So numbers are amazing from our customer from Pakistan. We have seen actually an adoption that's amazing. Actually, we haven't seen it before. So that's actually, it is in line with what Faisal said, that the country is ready. Everyone is waiting to have the full ecosystem in place. And I think it will be a very successful story for Pakistan. We have seen it that from our data. Everyone is ready. Just bring everything together as what Faisal said, and Pakistan will be there.
Great. This is thank you very much. I'm really mindful of the time. We only have 5 minutes, so if I could just have one more. So there's another question, and it's for Osama, and actually Khalid, if time permits. We'll have 1 minute each. If you could please. The question is, you have players like, you have telco operators like STC, Saudi Telecom. You have Emirates, of course, the Etisalat in the UAE. And so STC, they offer STC Pay. You have telcos entering the remittance space, competing with the landscape. How, what are your comments on this, Osama? And then I'll move to the same question for Khalid. I know it's an interesting question, but it's you only have 1 minute, sorry.
Yeah, very fast. The telcos trying to leverage on their what we call it clientele database, clientele base. Which they have the right actually to do so. Having the decline on the normal calls and the normal use of data, and the shift from normal calls to the voice over IPs. This is reality. But on the other side, I mean, what we call it between the incumbents and between what's happening. So here in UAE, Etisalat came with their initiative related to the wallet. They have joined one of the banks, and they have introduced a wallet for their customers in order to load those wallets, and then to have, I believe, the way forward is about more collaborations between incumbents, between the startups, between fintech companies. And this is happening. We were the first to onboard a fintech company called Now Money, and 2 years ago, and we started jointly those. They were providing the what we call it the payroll things, and we were doing the remittance side. We also have a joint venture with another company as one of the finance companies in Abu Dhabi. The same issue, and the things is also the other initiatives. So there is kind of what we call it more toward a win-win situation. There's no one stands alone to have everything by himself. I see this one as a trend going forward. Each one has his own strength and ability, and he can access certain or penetrate certain, segments of the market with his digital initiatives, and the other have the core, from the incumbent's point of view. That is something which is the shift in the model, which we need to accept, and we need to be more open-minded about how we collaborate and cooperate with each other, so we have a more better, products for the end users.
Same question for you, Khalid. 30 seconds, my friend. I apologize, but
no issue at all. Actually, for us as Injaz and or the local market, the market is very big. Actually, is not only for banks or for remittance houses or for fintech or teleco operator. The market is big. We have at Injaz multiple of solutions. It's not only about the app. No, we have multiple of solutions from ATM, internet banking, kiosk, serving customer at their location, remote branches. We have multiple of solutions that we do have the capability to compete in the market and acquire more market share.
Okay, great, Khalid. Thank you very much. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much. Please do visit our stand within the virtual trade fair by IMTC, stand P2, when you walk into the fair. Within the same stand, you can find useful information and, graphics and documentation about the current state of the market. Thank you very much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. Very informative session. I've learned a lot. Thank you. And I'm sure the audience has as well. So thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.